Hey gang, we are wrapping up that week 13 discussion where you were looking for some sort of print or other prompt that started with one piece of media and led you to a website. So in some cases you were looking at a flyer that you found on a bulletin board, or you were looking at an ad in a magazine, or maybe you were looking at an email advertisement you received. We had a nice variety of the local versus kind of the corporate global aspect. And I really did appreciate that mix in your conversations. The thoroughness that you gave to considering what made you look at that print ad to begin with, or what made you look at that initial contact and then drove you to the website, and whether or not the website was truly helpful or not. There's a great quote on screen that came from the end of last week's discussion. If you're scrolling down the page, then you'll want to scroll towards the bottom. And the quote is actually from Tammy Hanshaw. She posted this yesterday, which is why I wanted to call attention to it. But in general, she makes the perfect point about both being marketing, one trying to start the conversation with you and the other trying to keep you around, make contact, and engage. So let's translate that to learning settings. Oftentimes, you give students some sort of handout of material. It may refer them elsewhere or it may not. But are you initiating the conversation with the student with the resources that you design? Maybe it's something that you put on the wall. Maybe it's something that you hand out. Maybe you're in a K-12 setting. Maybe you're in an industrial, more training setting. How are you initiating the conversation with your designs? And how are you persuading the learner to make contact and engage with the content? That's the point that I really wanted to make here and kind of put the nice little bow, if you will, on this conversation. In general, what we found was that print, or the initiator of the conversation, was better designed or followed better practices than the web. In most cases, there were a few where that wasn't true. But the why, in some cases it was the design. You were driven, or at least you were drawn to the initial design because maybe it followed the WET layout. Maybe it used bold fonts. Maybe it used a particular color scheme that drew you in. Each of you talked about what it was that caught your attention, and each of you drew a correlation back to some component that we've talked about, discussed, and explored in this class. In other cases, you were drawn to the print piece or the initiator piece because of the information that was presented, or at least in one very great case, the lack thereof. You look at it and something's missing. In this case, it was just the name of a business and a click here to learn more info. For some people, that's enough. Your curiosity is piqued. But for others, they need something else to entice them to go for more information. So think about that as we're designing to send a message, whether it's marketing or educational. In general, though, we had some great conversations. I did go back through this morning like I always do and chimed in with some responses or clarification, or maybe we were trying to guess what made something happen. So be sure to go back and check over those responses as you dive into this week. And with that in mind, let's take a look at what's on deck for this week. Use the on-screen navigation to access another section of this week's overview.
Just